Hello, this is MattiAce, and yes, the air-to-air tomcat missiles. I gotta admit, there's one thing about this weapon that I found to be very challenging, something that has put my creativity to the test, and that is to make an interesting YouTube video about them. Because the thing about Planetside 2 is that in many situations the videos kind of make themselves. There's so much happening in the game, there are so many weapons, there are so many epic moments that making videos are quite easy. By playing this game you are constantly in epic battles that looks really cool and that makes really good videos. But the air-to-air lock-on missiles, not so much. Now, the thing about the air-to-air gameplay is that it presents you with a certain challenge, and it has been quite hard to access for inexperienced and new players, which has been a problem. But the thing is also that once you have overcome some of these obstacles, it becomes really fun. So now the point with having these weapons in the game and the reasons why they have been buffed, the reasons why they have added coyotes and nerfing the rotaries and some such, is of course to make the game less based on player skill and more accessible for less skilled, less experienced players. Most players know this and most players accept this. However, it has been done at the expense of what has made the air-to-air gameplay so interesting and so challenging and fun. But I guess that our developers are hoping that the players that leave the game in their disappointment of the changes are going to be less than the new players coming into the game because it is now more accessible. So now, a couple of things about the changes that I want to point out for players like myself. I'm one of the old school pilots. I played the game since beta, and I have adapted my playstyle and my weapon loadout to what has happened in the latest patches. So, back in the days, the most common loadout for an air-to-air ESF pilot was the fuel pods instead of a secondary weapon, and the rotary, or hailstorm if you were a Vanu player. So now the strength of this build is of course more maneuverability and more speed due to the extra afterburner, and most players are already aware of this build's advantages. But the thing about the experienced players is that the experienced pilots, such as myself, we are normally the ones that venture out far from our own territory in order to gain new challenges where we are most likely outnumbered, where we have no support from ground troops using anti-air such as skyguards, lock-ons, and burster maxes. Something that is more common for less experienced pilots to want to rely on, as well as the strength in numbers. And yeah, being able to outnumber your opponent is a very common strategy. But the problem with flying far away from your own bases with the rotary and the fuel pods have always been the lack of ammo. The rotary has a very limited amount of ammo and you have no secondary. Now with the addition to the lock-on missiles you have 10 more missiles, and with the locust cannon instead of the rotary you have a lot more ammo and can stay in enemy territory for a much longer period of time before you have to go back home and resupply. Now that's the funny thing about weapons that are designed to be easy to use, is that experienced players have a tendency to get so frustrated over these weapons that we start using them ourselves, which is what you see me doing in this video. And it's the same thing as all the videos I've made about maxes and harassers back in the days and lightning tanks and some such, is that I find most of these overpowered weapons and vehicles and playstyles to be so frustrating and have such a negative impact on the game that I want to show how it looks when players like myself use them. And that's the thing, maxes for example, I refused to even touch them for almost a year. And then, the moment I started uploading a couple of videos with them, people said, "Hey, Matti, you're only in maxes. Why don't you play some real infantry?" And I would have expected by now that people were going to say the same thing about me using the lock-ons, but so far it hasn't happened yet. I'll give it a few more weeks. Now, there are of course players that would try to argue that lock-ons and coyote missiles are something positive and something that is already balanced in the game. I think it has to do with how much they are used on your server, and the balance decisions made by SOE are of course affected by how much players are actually using whatever weapon. And that is one of the things that I want to point out about this video, and what I have changed in my playstyle for the last couple of months is that I used to be almost like this white knight where that refused to use anything that I considered overpowered, boring, and skillless, and in the hope of being able to enjoy and play the game without it. Unfortunately, basically all of these weapons have been buffed and been considered by SOE to not be effective enough, and I believe that some of the reason why they think so, our developers that is because there are a lot of high skilled players that do not use weapons because they are boring and overpowered. And it's very unfortunate that SOE are so how should I call it, ignorant in their belief that they only look at the statistics of how much people use a weapon and how well they perform, and the only conclusion they draw is that the better a weapon performs and the more people use it, the better the weapon is, and the less people use it and the less it performs, the worse the weapon is. That is not the case. I have refused to use maxes for a long, long time because they are too good, and I'm not the only one. Unfortunately, as we still haven't figured this out, it seems. Now, one of the good things I would have to say about the lock-ons is that at least as we have fixed the lock-on bug, this thing that you've seen a lot of players like myself abusing. Here you see it again, the way I killed Sato here. That's actually a bug. You can't do that anymore, and that is a good thing. Unfortunately, with lock-ons and many other annoying things, there's been a lot of bugs that SOE takes their sweet time fixing. So anyway, that's all for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. I have enough footage on my hard drive to make at least 2 more of these videos without even playing the game, so I might come up with a new video relatively soon, but most likely will it take a while. I'm not really sure what else to say about lock-ons, but anyway, thank you all for watching, and bye for now.
Maybe you can. Yeah, maybe I will like a mina. Tycker jag är